Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain Free You. Today's topic is going to be, are you accumulating emotional pain? So I'll get to that in a minute. Relax, breathe, slow. Emotions make you human. They don't make you broken. We don't like them, but gotta feel them. So, are you accumulating emotional pain? You know, when we kind of push away and reject emotions that are unpleasant, that we don't want to feel, doesn't make them go away. Not in the least bit. What we do is we accumulate them. We stuff them under the rug, and we keep sweeping them under the rug, and before you know it, you get this big lump underneath the rug, and you're tripping over it all the time, right? Emotions are supposed to be felt so that they can release, so that the energy from emotions can exit the body and release, right? Shoving it aside, shoving it into the basement, shoving it into the, sweeping it under the carpet, they accumulate. And the analogy that I've often used years ago was, imagine throwing all these unwanted emotions into the basement, and they start accumulating down there. This is big glob of the blob, right, of emotions. And you can imagine, if you do a lifetime of that, that blob is going to start rising and getting deeper down in the basement. And it's going to start rising up and covering the first step, then the second step, and climbing the steps. And the whole basement's full of these unwanted, unfelt emotions. And they accumulate. At a certain point in time, it's going to reach the top of the stairs in the basement. And what happens? It starts to ooze out under the door from the kitchen into the basement. And when it does that, we start to get symptoms. Now, emotions are one of the perceived dangers. Sarna was right. Repressed emotions are definitely perceived by the brain as dangerous. Why? Because we learned as a child that certain emotions were bad. They made us weak, out of control, crazy. An angry guy like my dad, and I vowed never to be like him, right? So we have all these reasons why emotions aren't good. And certainly, look, anger, sadness, rage, fear, jealousy, guilt, they're not fun emotions. But they are necessary emotions, and they're part of the human experience. Absolutely. So I often say, we can learn a lot about emotions from watching a 2-year-old. When a 2-year-old is angry, what's he going to do? He's going to scream, scrunch up his face, have a temper tantrum, right? You know it. He's angry. But sure enough, within a few minutes, that kid's anger settles down. And pretty soon they kind of, sniffle, and the emotion's gone. Then they go off and play. Then they resume life. They resume activity. Same thing with sadness. When a 2-year-old's sad, they cry. They cry their eyes out. But they sniffle a little bit, and what do you want to do now? I want to go play. The emotion has been felt, and it passed. So what can you learn by watching a 2-year-old process, deal with, release emotions? We can do that too. So are you accumulating unfelt emotions? How long have you been doing that? Now, some people say, well, Dan, you've been talking about this perceived danger for a long time, which basically means fear. And then we become afraid of the symptoms, and then we're saying, but I'm not supposed to be afraid of the symptoms. So now we become afraid of fear, and I talked about this recently. And then we try to push away the fear. And I just want to clarify, I'm not encouraging us to not feel emotions about the symptoms. It's okay to feel them, to experience them, to allow them. Because again, If you try to make believe you're not afraid when you're accumulating fear. You're not getting rid of it. You're not releasing it, experiencing it, and allowing it. And so one of the big steps that I think is important with emotions is to, without judgment, allow yourself to experience the emotion so it doesn't get shoved in the basement or swept under the rug. Because typically emotions pass reasonably quickly when felt. Now, there's different thinking on how long emotions take to release, but the bottom line is avoiding them, running away from them, sweeping them under the carpet doesn't make them go away. We got to feel them without judging ourselves for having them. Now, in my book, I did an exercise that's, what does it mean about me if I feel a certain emotion? So for me, if I got angry, in a rage, what did it mean about me? It meant I'm an angry guy like my dad, and I never wanted to be like him because he was tough to deal with. If I was sad, it meant I was weak, a big baby, and all sorts of beliefs and opinions about myself if I felt certain emotions. Right? Shame and guilt means I did something wrong. So if you're looking for something like that, it's in the book, but you can ask yourself that question now. Get out a blank piece of paper, write down a bunch of emotions that might be perceived as negative, even though they're not, they're human. Write that down. Middle column, what do I believe about myself if I feel these emotions? Third column, what's the new meaning? And generally, you get to decide what the new meaning is if you feel angry or sad or fear or whatever. It means you're human, right? But go through that exercise. Take out a pen and paper. I think it's a useful way of kind of reframing that emotions aren't these horrible things that we have to avoid at all costs. Because when you avoid them, they accumulate. They don't go away. And people will say, I don't feel like I'm in a rage. I've got nothing to be in a rage about. No, but you might have, 5,200 little things to be angry about that are accumulating. And at a certain point in time, you've just got this incredible rage. And then you come down with symptoms. And where's that rage? It's focused at the symptoms, right? It's focused at how much we hate the symptoms because we got this boiling, accumulated rage built up. And we direct it and point it at the symptoms. But the challenge is, raging at the symptoms doesn't make them go away. Just like raging at our emotions or avoiding emotions doesn't make it go away. It's important to feel the emotions. Allow it to be, as long as it takes. In my book, I talk about the open house for emotions. There's also a video on that topic. Search YouTube, Pain-Free You Open House for Emotions. And I describe that process. It's useful to get into an allowing state. I don't believe we need to go dig up emotions, but we certainly want to allow them when they show up and knock on the door. So I hope this makes sense. Are you accumulating unfelt, unwanted emotions? If you are, it's probably contributing to the whole mind-body condition that you're experiencing and the perpetuation of symptoms. Because unfelt emotions have a whole bunch of energy. It's kind of built up and stored in the body. And allowing yourself to feel them will start to empty the bucket. Will start to empty the sludge in the basement of emotions that you've been sweeping down there for years, possibly decades. Right? And so, along the basement analogy, if the basement's full, imagine getting a nice sump pump that's capable of sucking that sludge out and throwing it outside where it can dry up in the sun, right? So, what are you accumulating? Are you accumulating your unfelt emotions? If you're not feeling them, you probably are. Not judging, not shaming, but just encouraging, gently, to start allowing yourself to be human, to feel what you feel without judging yourself. And the last key here is try not to ruminate on the stories behind the emotions, because that can cause you to hold on to resentment, grudges, can cause us to have relationship issues for a long time. I'm not saying we forgive unforgivable things, just saying we want to experience the emotions so they can dissipate and pass. So, love you folks, and as always, we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.